Have you ever wondered what happens the moment you die? Darkness? Light? Or nothing at all? In hospitals around the world, people who have been resuscitated from cardiac arrest report strikingly similar experiences. A tunnel, a light, and the sensation of leaving their own body. Is this simply a dream? A hallucination? Or does it mean we've been fundamentally wrong about the nature of consciousness? Today, let's venture into what science's cutting edge reveals about what happens at the moment of death. By the time this video ends, the way you see consciousness and existence may never be quite the same. Chapter 1. The Anatomy of the Afterlife. What near-death experiences reveal. Let's start with the facts. Reports of near-death experiences are not merely personal anecdotes. A substantial body of cases has accumulated across multiple countries, and researchers have begun identifying recurring elements. While certain features tend to be reported consistently, the finer details vary with culture and belief. In 1975, physician Raymond Moody synthesized the characteristic elements of near-death experiences into a form that reached wide audiences, laying the groundwork for decades of research that followed. The sensation of moving through a tunnel, an encounter with an overwhelming light, and the experience of watching one's own death from above. Out-of-body reports, in particular, left scientists deeply puzzled. Patients who claimed to observe their own resuscitation from near the ceiling of the operating room later described specific details that physicians were able to verify. How does someone who has lost consciousness know what was happening in that room? To be precise, these are case reports based on patient and medical staff testimony, and rigorous controlled verification of such experiences remains elusive. At the frontier of science, researchers are beginning to study these experiences objectively, not as near-death experiences, but as recalled events from the dying process. An attempt to treat them not as vague impressions, but as measurable phenomena. And here's where a crucial question emerges. If consciousness is nothing more than brain activity, why can it produce experience when that brain is severely compromised? That question has set neuroscientists in motion. Near-death experiences have been documented, but science does not speak with one voice about their cause. So let's look inside the brain and see what may be happening there. Chapter 2. The Brain's Final Flash. What neuroscience is trying to solve. From a neuroscientific standpoint, there are several candidate explanations for near-death experiences. None offers a complete answer, but each carries remarkable implications. The first hypothesis is cerebral oxygen deprivation. When blood flow and oxygen to the brain are suddenly cut off after cardiac arrest, neurons begin firing in chaotic bursts. Recent case reports examining the brain activity of dying patients have documented changes in neural activity and connectivity, including in the gamma band, shortly before and after death. In 2023, a team at the University of Michigan recorded this in 4 patients and published their findings in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. These findings are limited in sample size, and caution is warranted in generalizing from them. And yet, rather than fading quietly, the brain may ignite one final intense surge at the edge of death. There is another candidate, DMT. This substance, which may be produced within the body itself, is known to generate intense visionary experiences. Some researchers have proposed that DMT could be released at the moment of death, giving rise to near-death experiences. However, the pathway for its synthesis in the human brain, and whether it is released at the point of death, remain unconfirmed. For now, this remains firmly in the realm of hypothesis. And then there is perhaps the most compelling evidence of all. Dr. Olaf Blanke and colleagues in Switzerland applied electrical stimulation to a specific brain region, the right temporoparietal junction at the boundary of the temporal and parietal lobes, and patients reported experiences that resembled out-of-body sensations. Let's think about what this means. Out-of-body-like experiences, in particular, may be explained by disruptions to the brain network responsible for bodily self-perception. And yet, that does not account for everything near-death experiences encompass. In 2023, the large-scale AWARE-2 study produced a striking finding. In roughly 40% of patients who received CPR, brainwave activity associated with consciousness persisted or recovered for up to an hour after resuscitation. The brain may be holding on far longer than we ever imagined. And researchers are now paying closer attention to how post-resuscitation treatments, sedation, targeted temperature management, may shape both the experience itself and how it is later remembered and described. Neuroscience gives us clues, but it does not close the mystery. I want to pause here and consider this. If near-death experiences are nothing more than hallucinations produced by the brain, why are they this consistent? And why do so many of those who have them return without their fear of death? Science is searching for the cause. But the question runs deeper than that. So let's turn, finally, to the most fundamental question of all. Chapter 3. Does consciousness disappear? Materialism and what lies beyond. Even after hearing what science has to offer, one question persists. Is consciousness something that simply ends when the brain stops? Materialism says yes. Consciousness is brain activity, and when the brain dies, consciousness ends with it. That is a logically coherent position. But philosopher David Chalmers pushed back with a question of his own. Why do physical processes give rise to the experience of feeling anything at all? This is known as the hard problem of consciousness. Even a complete map of the brain's mechanisms leaves unanswered the question of why there is a me experiencing any of it. Some physicists have explored the possibility that consciousness is rooted in quantum mechanical processes. This is the theory of quantum consciousness, proposed by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. At present, however, this hypothesis has not reached mainstream scientific consensus, and both criticism and testing continue. Some researchers see it as a potential key to the mystery of consciousness. Others find the evidence insufficient. But here is what I find most striking of all. Multiple studies have shown a tendency among near-death experience survivors to report reduced fear of death and a shift in values afterward. Science might call this a byproduct of the brain's chemical changes. But whatever we make of whether the experience itself was real, the fact that their lives were fundamentally transformed remains. Let's think about what this means. We still do not know what consciousness is, and not knowing means the question is still open. Materialism offers the most economical explanation. Yet the history of science has repeatedly shown that the most economical explanation is not always the one that endures. What is consciousness? Does it end with the brain, or does it continue in some other form? This question has gone unanswered from the day humanity first began to philosophize to this very moment. And confronting it is what draws us back to living most fully. And so we find ourselves facing a new question. Let's gather what today's exploration has revealed. Chapter 4. The Endless Quest. Today we venture deep into the question of what happens when we die. We began with the phenomenon of near-death experiences, traced the explanations neuroscience offers, and finally touched on consciousness itself, the last great mystery. Science gave us clues, but it did not close the door. Let me draw out 3 insights from today's exploration. First, near-death experiences share recurring elements. Tunnels, light, and out-of-body sensations have been reported across cultures. That said, the content varies with culture and belief. Not everyone has the same experience. Still, this consistency suggests something about human consciousness that we have not yet fully grasped. Second, neuroscience explains but does not resolve. Oxygen deprivation, surges in neural activity, stimulation of the temporal-parietal junction. These make certain elements of near-death experiences easier to account for. But neuroscience still has no answer to why consciousness exists at all. Third, the mystery of consciousness remains open. The hard problem of consciousness is unsolved. Materialism offers the most concise answer, but no one yet possesses an answer to why matter gives rise to experience. And that is not a failure of science. It means the deepest question is still alive. What these 3 insights reveal is this: death is not merely an ending. It is a mirror that illuminates the greatest question about human consciousness itself. What this exploration renewed in me is the sense that the most profound questions lie precisely within what we do not yet understand. The further science advances, the deeper the mystery of consciousness becomes. And that is not cause for despair. It is a source of intellectual wonder. The fact that a question this fundamental remains open means we are still in the middle of the journey. I want to ask you something. If consciousness is nothing more than brain activity, how do you make sense of the transformation in people who return from near-death experiences, no longer afraid to die? And has thinking seriously about death shifted, even slightly, how today looks to you? These questions have no answers yet, but continuing to ask them is what moves us forward. And thinking about death, paradoxically, brings into sharp relief how we choose to live. After this video ends, and you step back into ordinary life, try to stay with it for just a moment. The emotions you felt today, the questions that arose in you, those themselves are proof of your consciousness. Whether it is brain activity, a quantum phenomenon, or something else entirely, it is undeniably here right now. To ask what death is also to ask what life is. In the middle of an ordinary day, pause for a moment and let yourself brush up against the strangeness of the fact that you are experiencing anything at all. Share your insights in the comments. Your questions are what propel this channel forward. I'm grateful you stayed with this intellectual journey all the way to the end. Here at Mindshift, we keep exploring the most fundamental questions: consciousness, the cosmos, the nature of existence, from both the scientific and philosophical sides. This is not a channel that hands you answers. It's a channel that opens doors to questions. Subscribe and turn on notifications, and let's continue the journey together. Until next time.